Welcome to the Counters. At this point, we'll be looking at depreciation terms, which will be very helpful in applying them and in calculating depreciation. So here they are. I've written them down, and here are a few which are very commonly used. The first one is residual or salvage or scrap value. Those terms are usually used synonymously, so they may either say residual value, salvage value, or scrap value. So what is residual value? Residual value is the expected or estimated value of the asset at the end of its useful life. So it's at the end of the useful life, whatever is remaining, whatever value is remaining of the vehicle or whatever the asset may be. That is what will be known as residual value. So if the asset will be depreciated over a period of 10 years, and they say that they expect the value of the asset after 10 years to be 15,000 rand, that will be known as residual value. So what is left over after the asset is fully depreciated. So that is what residual is in a nutshell. The next one we'll be looking at is carrying value. What is carrying value? Carrying value is also known as book value. It is the value of an asset according to an entity's books. In simple terms, carrying value is original cost of the asset, whatever you bought the asset with, minus the accumulated depreciation of the asset. So original cost of the asset minus accumulated depreciation of the asset. So that's known as book value. That's the carrying value, the amount at a specific period after deducting all the depreciation. And then the third one we'll be looking at is depreciation. What is depreciation? Obviously, we're looking at depreciation terms, so I'm sure we would know what depreciation is. But depreciation is simply a reduction in the value of an asset over time, due in particular to wear and tear. We know something like a vehicle or building loses value as time goes by, and that is known as depreciation. It depreciates. The fourth one we'll be looking at are two methods of depreciation, two very common methods of depreciation. The first one is known as the straight line method, which is the most common method of depreciation. What is the straight line method? The straight line method is a method of allocating depreciation expense equally throughout their useful lives. So straight line method of depreciation means that the depreciation for each year of that asset will be exactly the same, each year going forward. And the second method of depreciation is the diminishing or reducing balance method. The reducing balance method or diminishing balance method, so they may say diminishing balance method or the reducing balance method, they use them interchangeably. It's a method of depreciating an asset based on a percentage of its carrying value. Now we just looked at the carrying value. So straight line method uses the cost of the asset, or the cost that you bought the asset is, whatever the cost that is, to calculate the depreciation every year. But diminishing balance or reducing balance method uses the carrying value to calculate the depreciation every year. So we know that the carrying value keeps going down because depreciation is being deducted or from the cost of the asset, which gives us the carrying value. So that means the diminishing balance method of calculating depreciation, the depreciation amount will be lower every year, as opposed to the straight line method where it will be the same every year. And the last one we'll be looking at is accumulated depreciation. I've mentioned it a few times when you're calculating carrying value and when looking at diminishing balance method. So what is accumulated depreciation? Accumulated depreciation is the amount of an asset's cost that has been allocated to depreciation expense since the time that the asset was acquired. So the amount of an asset's cost that has been allocated to depreciation expense since the time that the asset was acquired. What does this mean? This means that whatever depreciation has been calculated and deducted from the asset every year, all those depreciation for every year, so let's say depreciation for 2 years ago, depreciation for a year ago, and depreciation for this year, all that depreciation added together is called accumulated depreciation. It's depreciation that has been accumulating over time. And there's as a basic explanations of the terms that you'll need to understand in understanding depreciation and in being able to calculate them effectively. So if you look at the bottom of the description, you'll be able to see a link to the straight line method of calculating depreciation and the diminishing and diminishing balance method of calculating depreciation. You can go over there and be able to understand how to calculate this with the examples that I've shown below. Till next time, cheers.